The term white elephant has been used since at least the 1800s to refer to a less than desirable gift. According to legend, the tradition of the white elephant gifts began long ago when the king of Siam, now Thailand, gave an actual white elephant to anyone he disliked. According to an 1873 article from the New York Times, the white elephant, impossible to get rid of and too expensive to maintain, would be an enormous financial burden and impoverish the recipient. This is shaped into the modern-day gift-giving idea of gag gifts, and in many ways it has already been explored on film and television, but never as the backdrop for a narrative feature like this.
Let's get ready to White Elephant!
Some people do karaoke, we do a white elephant.
I have a feeling there's going to be a big surprise tonight.
You do?
It is my kid, right?
Why does everybody keep asking you that? I didn't come here to break up with Wade.
I'm so sorry, babe.
This white elephant is not over!
Now that is a white elephant gift.
Best white elephant ever.
Oh, yes.
Unlike traditional white elephant rules, this episode and film may only need one pass to know you're in love with it and want to keep it. As we unwrap the season finale and turn the spotlight on White Elephant.
I'm curious to start with how each of you got involved in this, and where did this genesis come from for this film?
I was inspired by my family went to a pretty competitive white elephant growing up, and we always, I have two brothers, and we were always super competitive, and then we would get competitive with other families, and so I'm sure there's some inspiration there. And then really, I'm a big Christmas movie fan, and always dreamed of writing and making one day, but wanted to find some kind of fresh spin on it. And my production company, we've made quite a few of the sort of more isolated movies, sort of single location types of movies. And my business partner, production partner, and I were saying one day over lunch, like, we should try to figure out a contained holiday movie. So, it's one of those things where it's like an hour of eating salad or whatever and not really having any inspiration. And then we're walking back to our office, and like, right as we're opening the door, I go, white elephant, boom. And so, that was kind of, I guess, the start of it all. And then as I sat down to write it, I knew just, a typical white elephant would need to be elevated both in the actual white elephant itself. Typically they're sort of like gag gifts or $20 gifts or whatever. So right. This idea of this group of friends that does it in a bigger, better way than everybody else, I knew it would help elevate it.
Isn't there a size limit?
1 to 8 feet circumference, 1 to 500 pounds.
Creativity's encouraged.
She knows no snuggies, right? $100 value or more. No living gifts. Do you guys remember the Albino Crew?
I shelled out a lot for it.
And then obviously, like, creating storylines that were big things that, people in this age group go through. And I don't think you see a lot of movies that are that age group. I think, you tend to sort of get like your YA and then your sort of more adult material. But, to me, your 20s, your late 20s, your early 30s, like, it's such a period of discovery, and there's so much, ripe things to tap into there. So
how about for the both of you, how did you all get involved?
We auditioned. It was because it was, mid-pandemic. It was all via Zoom, and we had rehearsals on Zoom, and Paul and I didn't even meet each other until the first day on set. But we felt like we'd met because we had done a bunch of, not just rehearsals, but our cast and Corey all hung out together on Zoom and had some wine after our rehearsals. And so it felt, we did a lot of work beforehand to make sure that it felt like authentic friendships once we got on set.
How about for you, Paul? What's this experience been like for you?
It's been an awesome experience. Again, it was middle of pandemic, so it was definitely a different audition experience. It was my first time doing a callback on Zoom, and it took a second to just get used to that. But it was so fun. Just even the rehearsal process, being with everyone, like Lana was saying, like on the Zoom, and at first it was just getting used to just the amount of dialogue and lines we had to prepare, because getting on set, everything was just going to be so quick. So we kind of just got the lines together, and we just went through. We basically came on set knowing all of our lines. The good thing about that was that we kind of just let go of just the dialogue, and it was kind of just being your character and experimenting and just finding the chemistry with not only our the couples that we were with, but also the entire cast, and of course Corey and his team. And so it was just a fun process overall, very different than I had ever experienced, but very refreshing and very fun to be a part of, especially festive and Christmassy and in the middle of August, which was also
it's LA. Nobody knows the difference between whether it's August or it's December, right? Yeah, but I mean, well, you're indoors anyway, so it doesn't really matter in that respect either. Speaking to the one room theme of this idea and aspect of it, how important was it for you, Corey, and for Lana and Paul? I also want to kind of get your perspective too. But how important was it for you in the pre-production process to kind of map out and move around? Because I have to imagine, while the apartment looked pretty big, it probably, for light rigs and camera setups and things like that, you only had certain ways you could do those things, especially you're moving from room to room, area to area. And so, you know, getting that room, it seems like you guys used a lot of wide shots to establish and to cover to do coverage basis a lot. And so how important was that all? Was that all developed in pre-production? Was that something that you guys kind of worked at and figured out ahead of time? Or was it something that, you know, you discovered in the edit? Where did all of that come from in terms of getting that room and kind of moving around?
We wanted to be as prepared as possible when we arrived on set first day. You know, we have some long scenes and some scenes with a lot of movement, a back and forth trading. And, you know, there was a couple scenes where there were 80 movements, you know, and mapped every single one of them out. And so we could use it in our other cameraman. But then once we really got into it, we kind of threw that out a little. And our actors so good and have a lot of experience in stage work. And so being able to trust them and just with their natural movements, and once everybody figured, everyone was already up as far as the lines go, but then once they kind of had it in their heads as far as, you know, where the gift is going, who's getting in and where they're taking it from and all those things, then, you know, we did have choreography or blocking, you know, but a lot of it was just natural, and then letting the cameras follow the movement. And, you know, my favorite TV show of all time is Friday Night Lights, and the way they filmed that show with the roaming cameras and following, and, you know, you miss lines sometimes. You know, I feel like we had that. And once we really, there was only one or two lines in the whole movie that we just didn't really have like a great angle on or whatever. But that didn't bother me because I love the fluidity of the feel of it all, you know.
Yeah, and it didn't seem like there was there was scenes where you pan and stuff like that, but it really came together cut wise too, which I found very interesting because it flew like you know, it just had that fluid motion to it, but it didn't ever feel like it didn't feel indie in the fact that, like, you know, you see these one room things where they pan real fast, where they kind of focus in and then pull out kind of stuff. You stayed pretty conventional to the setups. I'm curious for Lana and Paul in terms of, did it feel like kind of like working a stage play a little bit, being able to move around a bit and how much do you appreciate that within your process?
Yes, it definitely felt like a play, and because everything was lit, and so it was kind of cool to just step into that space, and Corey kind of gave us freedom to just go wherever we please, and kind of, we obviously had natural blocking that took place, especially with the gift handing. It got confusing at times for sure, but it was definitely fun to just experiment and just have the freedom to, you know, go anywhere in the room at any time and just be able to, you know, the cameras would follow us around, and I think it led to give room for, you know, natural choices that actors would make, and cool things would come out of it. And for me personally, it was very different. I had never really done something like that, and it was just so freeing, and it was just a great set to be a part of, because I got to play and I got to find my character. The more takes we did, the more rehearsals we did. So I would love to shoot every movie like that personally.
Yeah, it was very fun. I had never shot anything in that way either. But I have a degree in musical theater, as does Nathan, as does Avery. Matthew has a big background in theater. You know, like Paul comes from, you know, a live performance background as well. Like a lot of us have been doing art in this way for so long, but, you know, doing that as a film was totally different and really fun. And it, you know, I don't think a lot of people realize how like start and stop film production is, you know, like you do like a chunk, you do like a page of something, and then you do it over and over and over again, and then, you know, you stop and you start and you stop and you start, and you're just trying to like find your emotional path and, you know, make sure everything flows in a way that seems like it's all shot at one time. But this was so cool because you took out a lot of the roadblocks. We shot 20, 30 pages at a time, and it just felt like, you know, it was really easy to just connect to everyone and to keep the momentum going because we weren't constantly being stopped. So that was really, really fun and very helpful.
Did you guys know what were in the boxes ahead of time? Did you know what the gifts were ahead of time? Was that written in the script?
Yes.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, that was the hard part, was the choreography of that for me.
Right. Yeah.
Remembering like, who am I pissing off now? Who am I giving this to? Like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'm wondering at what point, Paul, you decided to just hug the pillow and hold on to it for dear life, because that.
I mean, it's a pillow at the end of the day, so it was very convenient to. You know? It was like my safe space. No. Yeah, I felt like that was definitely something my character would do, just hold on to it for dear life. So
yeah,
it was an obvious choice in my mind.
This film has a great bit of diversity in it. It's very diverse. It has a diverse cast, but it's not pushed in your face. There's no agenda with it. It's all about friendship and just acceptance with amongst you all. You guys all have great opportunities in this film to shine, and never once was that ever an issue or brought up. And I'm curious, from your perspectives, is that refreshing to you? Is that something that you guys like gravitated toward when you read this the first time? Was it like, oh, I get to play, I get to be an actor and not worry about, you know, whether there's an offensive thing or there's, you know what I mean? Was it kind of freeing in that aspect for your process a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, just having an opportunity even during the pandemic to just do our thing in the middle of the pandemic. And you know, it's such a talented cast, not only just talented as actors. I mean, everyone's so multi-talented. And I think it was just, the story just tells you about a group of friends that just, you know, have this annual tradition, and, you know, like things happen during stuff like that, like white elephants. And, you know, there's a lot of drama, maybe not as dramatic, hopefully in real life. But definitely there's stuff that happens, and it's just fun to, like, I have this tradition with my friends as well, where we do a white elephant every year. And so I think it's a story that, you know, captures a lot of things, a lot of not only about friendship, but about family and about tradition and about Christmas. And, you know, I think that there's the cool thing about this movie is there's so many, it takes you on a roller coaster in the best way. Like, you know, there's moments where you cry, there's moments where you laugh, there's like punny moments, there's you know, like things that are just fun, and you know, things that maybe you relate to, and I think that's one of the key words. It's so relatable. So yeah, I definitely enjoyed that aspect of it as well.
Yeah, and to your point, Joe, about diversity, I feel like it is really refreshing to step onto a set where you're like, oh, everybody, you know, is such an individual, like physically, emotionally, like that's because that's real life. Like everybody looks different in real friend groups. It's, you know, not usually such a homogenized group that like we're used to seeing on screen. So that was, I loved it. It felt like the casting was very colorblind, which was wonderful. Yeah, different, like
definitely
age
did
group.
an amazing job.
Yes, yeah, our casting directors were awesome.
I feel, in terms of when you first picked up the script too, I have to imagine it was pretty colorblind as well. And so, I mean, it has to be refreshing because I imagine you guys go on multiple auditions, and there's a lot of auditions where probably you're going on and you're immediately typecast, and there's certain expectations when you walk in the door, and so to have something like this, was that equally as refreshing for you to just kind of go, oh, this is a dude, I can play a dude, or this is a woman, I can play a woman, kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, I think many of us read for multiple parts within it. So it was, there were definitely not ethnicities locked into any of the roles. It was all like, submit any ethnicity. And when we all, I had callbacks with different people who ended up getting cast in different parts. And it was like, oh, like they just didn't care. They just wanted whoever was the best fit for that part. And that's, it should be like that. That seems very logical, but it's usually not. So that was really refreshing.
Thank you. That's a huge compliment, and we try to do that with all our projects. But what Lana said is true, which is the people who were competing for roles didn't necessarily look alike at all. It was just how they and that's always a fun part of it for me.
Yeah, I'm curious, Corey. You as you mentioned, you have a production company. You've produced a ton of stuff, both television, film. You've done documentaries, but this is your first foray into being a writer director into a feature narrative film. I'm curious, what kind of challenges did you experience with that, and do you feel like that production experience made this a much smoother production for you as a first-time director writer?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to really know because the circumstances were so unique because of COVID. We didn't have a pre-production office and a big team who were working on a lot of things in pre-production. Like, I was wearing most of the hats up until the day we got on set. Like a lot of the props were things that I made or bought or my kids made some of our props. So that all of that stuff was such an unusual experience that I feel like I haven't really directed my first movie yet because of I didn't have the luxuries you have normally with a full crew and all that stuff. But it definitely made the fact that I've been a producer for all because when you're a producer you wear a lot of hats anyway. So
sure,
I think it made all of those things feel really natural and I think I have no ego about anything. So the fact that I, would show up to set and wipe it down with Clorox wipes before anybody got there, I had no issue with that. And I was just happy to be there. Like all of us were, and no one had an ego on this set. But I guess to go back and answer your question, the cast were so incredible. They made it so easy for me. And I think just being able to spend so much time rehearsing was such a blessing. And now that we're, knock on wood, somewhat out of COVID, I still would love to make movies this way. I loved how much rehearsal. I don't think you normally get to because your cast are usually a lot more busy with other projects. And
sure,
we had that advantage point of everybody was kind of chilling at home anyway. But I loved being as rehearsed as we were. That was really great.
I have a feeling there's going to be a big surprise tonight.
You do?
I can't go without not talking about this twist and turn. This is very stark. It is very bold, and it just turns on a dime. And I got to imagine that all of you were waiting for that moment when you read the script and you're on set and you're going, oh yeah, this is the time I get to sink my teeth into this. And I'm just curious what that was like for you guys, and were there times when you were kind of thinking about when that moment comes a little bit, or were you trying to stay within focus? How hard was it to stay in focus knowing what was about to come?
Well, we shot, I can't remember which one it was, but it was one of the most emotional moments that Lana has. We shot as our first scene on day one. And after the first take, you know, I'm covered in goosebumps, tears coming down my eyes. I think I yelled like fire or something. Like I look over to my partner and the editor. I'm like, we got it. Like, you know, it was just like, it was a magical moment. Like all of the performances are incredible in this movie, but Lana has, in my mind, such a difficult job because she goes on such a journey, and she absolutely killed it. I'm sure Paul would say the same thing, just being there, watching her like go through those emotions, and it was incredible.
It was definitely an amazing way to start like shooting, because it was like one of the first scenes, you know, it was like 30 pages, something crazy like that. And like, so then we just finished it. And then I just even remember we're just waiting there and we're like, the scene is done. And we're like, are they supposed to yell cut? Like, and I think they were just so into it. And I think everyone was so into the moment that it was like, oh yeah, cut. All right, wait, that was great. That was a great first take. It was just cool. It was definitely a cool moment to be a part of.
Yeah, and Corey, thank you for saying that. It's very nice stuff. It was what we were talking about earlier about shooting it like a play really helped with all that, because, you know, like everybody working opposite everybody in this cast was so easy. It was like it gelled together. Everyone is such a generous actor and a generous person, and it you know, it just makes everything go so fluidly, and it's so fun. And yeah, to start with the scene that was like, yeah, very twisty and turny.
This white elephant is not over.
It was great because then the rest of it, you go back and you're like, okay, this is the part where we're playing and we're like, and we've already gone to that darker spot. So now we just get to do the stuff with more levity. I think that the way it was all constructed, the whole process of shooting, everything just gelled together so well.
I needed every last piece of that beef jerky to properly sculpt it into a meat bouquet.
It's beautiful. I feel so alive!
Try it on. Try it on. I will take that thing. Yeah.
Soap on a rope? Go!
How's it hanging?
What if we get stuck with something we don't really want?
Now that is a white elephant gift.
Probably sound that part.
What do you love about indie film?
I like that there's freedom to play and kind of see where things go, because on a studio set, for example, everything's so rigid. There's no coloring outside the lines for the most part. And this, I don't even know how this is possible, but the fact that we were shooting in COVID and that, you know, there was a minimal crew and, you know, the shoot was on the shorter side, we still ended early every day, and it never felt rushed. Corey never, this is bizarre to me. I've never seen a director who's just so like chill, but also in control, honestly, because usually it's like, we don't have time, we gotta get this done, you know? But Corey was like, yeah, we'll get it done. And we always did, and nobody was ever stressed. And that's just such an unusual experience. So the fact that we had that, but we also were allowed to play and like, you know, take things to wherever they naturally went in terms of like blocking and stuff. Like they just followed us. That was really special for me.
Nice.
I would agree. Yes, definitely the freedom. I also would add, just it's more of an intimate environment as well. I mean, you're around actors. We were in the same like changing room. Well, not the same changing room, but as in like we would be around each other often, and you know, we had time to just talk, and like we had deep conversations in the back room. We would play games. Like all these things would happen outside of shooting that really like brought the cast together, and you know, it created relationships that I know will last for a very, very, very long time. And it was only we only had a short amount of time to shoot, so it's kind of refreshing to have that as well. But yeah, definitely the freedom, and you know, it was cool because I got to celebrate my birthday on set.
Nice.
Especially during a time like a pandemic. I was like, I don't even know if I would be able to celebrate a birthday. But yeah, it was so nice. Corey brought out cupcakes. We didn't know if we could blow on them or not. You know, it was one of those situations, and it was just fun. It was a great group of people to be around during such a crazy time in everyone's lives, and it was just refreshing and fun.
How about
For me, I think my favorite thing about indie film is I just love to be making stuff. And, you know, there's a quote I heard of Jason Blum say on a podcast one time, and they said, you know, what movie would you make if you had $100 million budget? And he said, I would never do it. I would make $25 million movies. And to me, I think I would make like, you know, 50, 300, like whatever, because, you know, like, and that's, to me, that's what I love about indie film is it allows you to work, you know, like if we all just sat around waiting for a studio movie to come to us, we would be really bored. So, you know, like indie film allows, you know, creative people to do creative stuff. And that's, to me, that's the best thing about indie film.
It only comes around once a year, friendly tradition and some extra cheer, but a feeling takes you over and it's suddenly clear. It's time for the white elephant blues.
Everybody's gifts are all wrapped up tight. This one looks amazing, but it's way too light. My aunt would probably steal it and start a big fight. Just a touch of white elephant blues. I've got my eye on some bamboo coasters, but I'll probably end up with that 8-slice toaster. Just another year of trying to figure out how not to get screwed.
Screw you!
Well, screw you too! You wanna trade me for your singing bass? Well, keep your hands off my snuggie, you can kiss my ass.
Oh, I'm never gonna learn.
Hey, when's it gonna be my turn?
When's it gonna be my turn?
That crazy albino pachyderm, the white elephant blues.
And that'll do it for the second season of GoIndieNow's Spotlight series. We've had a great season, highlighting the best in indie film, books, and music. If you missed any of this season's episodes, you can go back into our archives and check out the playlist labeled Spotlight Season 2, or check them out on our fall programming schedule playlist as well. We will be back to turn the spotlight on Season 3 in the fall. And until then, it's always time to go indie now.